Last week, in closing statements, Amber Heard said one thing that I believe to be actually true. She said that she has received death threats, threats towards her child, and even threats to put her child in the microwave. Oh my God. What is wrong with people? Seriously. No matter whether or not we agree with somebody, we are still on this planet as humans. And she actually said, I am human. I am human. This business of threatening someone we don't like or don't agree with is a symptom of a sickness in our society. And it is a symptom of a group of people who do not know their values. Like, seriously? Humanity, our culture, like what is going on that we feel that isn't acceptable to actually send somebody messages to tell them we hope they die? Look, okay, there's no getting around the fact that we all have our own experiences and triggers when we see somebody doing things that seem, maybe even we could call them shameful. Sometimes we even think thoughts that might be like, God, I hope she whatever. But to actually take action and send those threats to another person, that's like next level. So let's just look at this for a minute. And I want to look at the process of what's going on inside ourselves when we feel triggered on this kind of level. Just to start off, I want to state, in according with the values that I have discovered for myself, I do not believe that it is okay to hurt or threaten another person unless I'm defending myself, my family. And we are going to go into this. I'm actually going to have a guest speaker on this channel in a couple weeks, and we're actually going to talk about this universal morality. And I'm super excited for the direction that this is going to go. But in one of our last videos, we talked about values. I talked about how once we start to evaluate our values and identify them, then we're able to start to have a better understanding of who you are. This allows us to recognize the parts of our mind that were programmed by another and those parts of us that are authentically ourselves. It also allows us to take the steps to live in our integrity. And what does integrity mean? Integrity means living a life that is aligned with our own values, even if no one else is looking. Because after all, we are always witnessing ourselves. And that's actually really the bottom line of it. By judging someone else as being abusive, we're judging them as being abusive, and then we turn around to become abusive ourselves, we're simply becoming hypocrites. And then we're just perpetuating the same dynamics. And so I believe that we can pause in our triggers and stop and choose a more conscious and thought out action. So let's just think about this for a minute. So if I have a value, and let's just say, for example, my value is truth. I value truth very highly. I value truth, integrity, and authenticity. And so I look at somebody like Amber Heard, I watch her on the stand and I go, oh goodness, eye rolls, like all the things, right? We've been having a collective societal conversation about this now for weeks. But in what world does it make sense for me to hold her accountable to my values, right? So rather than holding someone else accountable to my values, I instead have an opportunity here. What is the opportunity that I have? It's to remember my own values and to live accordingly myself, because I cannot control another person. That's just a fundamental rule of life. I can't control another person, but I do have control over myself and how I act. By being responsible for myself, then I can choose what action is going to best assist this place, this society, this world, this time in becoming what I would love to see. So I'm sorry. I know it's bad form. I just can't resist the coffee right now. It's important to recognize that we as humans do not all share the same values. This is kind of an interesting thing because for those of us that grew up in cults, religions, certain kinds of personalities, we are taught sort of like, this is right, this is wrong, and that's the bottom line. But once we start to get into a place where we are recognizing what our personal values are and living by them, we start to realize other people have different values, and that doesn't make them wrong. And so often what we value as adults is based on even traumas that we've experienced as children. So for me, for instance, I had some traumatic events happen in my infancy, which are very common. A lot of people go through, some kinds of abuse. And because of that situation, in that moment, I felt very trapped. And so when I look at my life, I see now as a core value, it's a visceral thing, that freedom is so important to me. And if I'm in a situation where I feel trapped, I will do anything to get out of it. And if I feel that someone else is in a situation where they're trapped, an instinct will kick in that will make me want to break that person free or help them. And so that is a core value of mine that is linked to a trauma of mine from childhood. So we can start to see how some of these values are actually linked to our unique experiences. So here's the thing, if we don't all share the same values, then how is it fair of me to hold somebody else to my standard of what values should be? That again violates this self-sovereignty principle. Whenever I hear myself saying they should, when I hear that word should, I check myself, because my job is to be responsible for myself. We all have trauma experiences. We all, and the other thing that I learned when I was studying at the temple is that the things that we see that happen around us, particularly the things that really trigger us, they're actually a mirror to ourselves and something going on inside of us. So what does seeing this trial, what does seeing Amber Heard testify, what does seeing these things evoke and resonate within you? And I will say, what does it resonate within me? Does it remind me of trauma I experienced? For me, I was married to someone who was an alcoholic. So there were certainly times where I came out of listening to some of that testimony and I was a little raw. And I had to sit with that because it brought me back to some of my own experiences. But is it fair of me to apply my own experiences and my sensitivity and triggers from that story onto their situation? Does she perhaps remind you of somebody else that you met or knew that inflicted harm upon you? I know someone in my life that says all I have to do is look at her and I see her eyes and they remind me of somebody that inflicted a lot of harm on them. And so, that's another way that, again, that's not about her actually. It's really about us and our experiences, because we can think we know, and I certainly do think I know, but also I have to check myself and remind myself, do I actually know? I have to leave room for the benefit of the doubt that there is potentially a circumstance that, it's likely that there's big parts of the story that we don't know. And so even though we might feel angry, even though we might have a judgment, lashing out and threatening somebody, that's definitely a violation of this code of morality. So when we challenge ourselves to look at the behavior of a person that we judge and don't agree with, I find it to be a useful exercise to put myself in their shoes. So for me, I'm going to put myself in her shoes because I was married to an alcoholic. And so, there is a real thing for those of you that have been in relationships to people who have been, in their own addictions. Especially when it was a passionate relationship, there become these moments where things just escalate. And I, as the person that was married to somebody who was struggling with his own sobriety, had moments where I just felt shattered. And I had moments where I was so frustrated and broken. I even started having panic attacks. And I had moments where I acted just absolutely at my worst. And I will tell you that I would not want those moments being aired out to the world as an example of who I am as a person. Because that's not just who I am as a person, right? Like, have I gotten so mad that I've actually thrown something across a room? Yeah, I definitely have. Do I want to put that out there as like, this is who Elizabeth is? No, I certainly don't. Because the thing is, we all have really, when we're at our worst, we've all got a list of things that we'd be pretty embarrassed if they came out in public. And, when we're at our best, we like to think of ourselves as generally good people, even people that have done horrible things, even still have good moments. And so nobody's all good and all bad. And that's really important to remember. The other thing is to keep in mind that, there's no denying that Johnny Depp was struggling with his addiction issues. And I don't happen to think that the atrocities and the stories that she told are really what happened. But I also don't think he was an angel either, because nobody is always, right? Even if we want to believe it. Also remember, when we get into those kinds of relationships, those fiery, passionate, dynamic relationships, you love so hard and you fight so hard. And typically those relationships are built on attraction from things from our traumas in the past. And so these two were just colliding in their traumas, and they were acting out things that they weren't even conscious or aware of until they blew up. And so at the heart of us judging ourselves is a denial of ourselves and who we really are. It's a distraction from ourselves and our issues to look at Amber Heard and be like, look at that person, look at what she's doing. Oh, she makes me so angry. Let's go stand outside the courthouse and chant, I hate you, Amber, I hate you, Amber. Can you imagine being her? Okay, and she walks out the courthouse and every day she hears, we hate you, we hate you, we hate you. You can think, oh good, she deserves it. Oh, maybe that'll teach her. A person like her is not self-aware enough to connect her actions with the experience that she's having. So self-aware people might look and go, oh, I slandered this person. I told all these stories. People really don't like me because I ruined this person's life and his family and all of this. Or, if it was true, we give it the benefit of the doubt. She can, she's not going to connect, I did this, to this is what I'm experiencing. She is in a place of emotional maturity where she's going, this is happening to me. You all are doing this to me. And I am innocent. It's not my fault. This is happening to me. And so, it's like when you deal with a child and, a child does something wrong. And it used to be very common practice to slap a child or hit a child as punishment to teach them that what they did was wrong. But the research actually shows that not only doesn't teach them, but it lowers their intelligence overall. That's what the research shows about hitting children. And so, if my child does something that is really wrong and I hit her, she's not going to sit down and make the association of, oh, I did this thing and I got hit, I'm not going to do this thing anymore. All she's going to do is go, mommy hit me and she's mean, right? She's not going to learn from that. So if we as a culture, as a society, as a people who are learning to be more conscious and aware, can move towards actions that are actually going to create outcomes that are going to benefit ourselves, each other, and the collective, then that just seems more effective. So if somebody like Amber Heard, is exaggerating and lying and maybe has a personality disorder, maybe doesn't, whatever, is threatening her, going to help her feel vulnerable and in a place of like, I think I'm going to look at myself and really deal with that? Or is that just going to shut her down even more? And how does it help the person making the threats? Because then we just become more angry and we feel like it's okay to just throw our anger at the other person. Hopefully we as individuals, when we get triggered by situations like this, we're willing to take an honest look at why. So when we're able to see what's going on inside ourselves, then we are able to see about the other people, perhaps what's going on with them, and have a more compassionate perspective about their actions. That very, very likely their abusive actions are rooted in trauma as well. Now, that does not mean that we make excuses for the person. I'm not saying that we need to go and send a bunch of fan mail to Amber. I'm not saying that we need to have any interaction with her. That's my point, is that we can have our own experiences around this and not necessarily involve her. So let's just give some language for a way that I've used to be able to connect with when I'm feeling really triggered or angry about something. So the first thing I do is I look at what is going on for me. Okay, so if I'm having a reaction to a person so much so that I'm like, I want to send them hate mail, which I don't send hate mail, but let's just theoretically, if we look at our values, so for me, my value is truth, and I can say, okay, I think she's lying. I don't believe her. Right? That's a factual statement. I don't believe her, or I don't like her lies, or as a survivor of domestic abuse, I can't say that I've been through domestic abuse, but I've seen a lot of people say that as survivors of domestic abuse, what they see her doing is really disturbing because it actually makes it harder for people who have truly experienced abuse. That's an actual statement of what their experience is. They're not, throwing these darts at Amber. They're just saying, this makes me angry. And that's an authentic response. I'm not saying to bypass your feelings. It is really important for us to say, I'm angry, or I'm triggered, or she reminds me of an abuser, or just, this is entertaining. But the difference is that you're taking responsibility for your experience in the moment and the emotions that are coming up for you, rather than throwing and saying, I hate you, you die, I'm gonna kill your baby. Like, geez, I still can't get over the fact that people act like this. So when we're able to see this about ourselves, we're able to see it about other people, have a more compassionate perspective of their actions. As individuals and as a collective, we have a choice. Look, the internet gives us, there's like this whole new thing called trolling. Okay, 20 years ago, there was no such thing as trolling. You wouldn't just like walk up to a random person in the grocery store and troll them to their face, right? The anonymity of the internet gives us, this ability to feel like we can do these things or say mean things or let off steam or whatever and not have any repercussions for it. But the true reality is that we are our own witnesses of ourselves. And if I continue to witness myself acting ugly, I'm going to start judging myself and I'm going to be less happy with myself. And that's the point of my practice, is in learning to take responsibility. Just because someone has done messed up things, it does not give us license to do messed up things. When we do that, we become exactly who we judge. Now, if somebody's attacking me, if somebody's attacking my family, you better believe I'm going to fight. And I'm going to do everything I need to do to protect myself and my family. But that's not what's going on here. So, in conclusion, as a humanity, I think we can do better. I really do. And I think that as we normalize this idea of taking responsibility for our emotions, then I think that we can start to evolve society. Now, it's difficult because I look at the last 3 years and I say that actually things have gone downhill in this department so much in the past 3 years, where you have somebody that has a disagreement, and all of a sudden, instead of giving intellectual or reasonable explanations on why they disagree with this person, or different evidence or whatever, they're literally just discrediting the other person. And I feel that that's actually a step backwards. But as humanity, we do not have to give into the baser instincts. So if the media, if the people in charge of our countries are demonstrating less evolved responses to situations, then we as the citizens have a responsibility, and we have the ability to model something different. Because as I start to learn how to stand in my integrity and model that, then other people are going to be able to do that too. And it's a practice. I am not saying that I am perfect, and I'm not saying that I always get this right. When I don't get it right, I have to go back and apologize. Like, well, I don't have to, but I choose to try to reconcile later, because that's just my path. I recognize you're all on a different path, but we can learn to cultivate authentic responses to situations that are also coming from a place of compassion. So I look forward to seeing what the response is going to be by the jury for this trial. And some of you watching this, it may have already been announced, but I know that we can do better than telling somebody, as a collective, than telling somebody that we're going to put their baby in the microwave. I know we can do better than that. So as we start to take responsibility for our triggers and emotions and connect with each other in more authentic ways, I am really optimistic that as a collective, we can start to move forward into authentic connections with one another. Thank you. Much love, many blessings, and stay tuned for my next video, where I'm actually going to be going into more detail about how to have a conversation with a person or a group of people that we disagree with. So, yay!